Racist cop pulls gun on Black Army general, gets the shock of his life. Major General Sarah Miller, a highly decorated veteran of the U.S. Army, had been looking forward to a rare day off. At 42, with her silver-streaked, close-cropped hair and an undeniable air of authority, she carried herself with discipline and confidence, qualities that had served her well in the military. Today, however, she wasn't leading troops or negotiating intense peace treaties. No, her mission was much simpler. Find a good pair of running shoes and maybe grab a smoothie afterward. Dressed casually in a tracksuit and comfortable sneakers, she blended effortlessly into the crowd at the upscale Westfield Mall, enjoying the normalcy of civilian life. As she strolled through a high-end athletic store, scanning the shelves for the perfect pair of sneakers, she became aware of lingering stares. At first, she brushed it off. After all, she was used to turning heads. But something felt off. These weren't just curious glances. There was something else in those eyes. Suspicion? Distrust? The feeling gnawed at her, but she chose to ignore it, focusing instead on her task. Little did she know, just moments ago, Officer Troy Beckett had entered the mall. Beckett, a middle-aged cop with a gruff demeanor, had a reputation, one that wasn't exactly spotless. He was known for making snap judgments, and worse, for having a quick trigger finger. Over the years, multiple complaints of racial profiling had been filed against him, but time and time again, they were conveniently swept under the rug. Today, Beckett was off duty, dressed down in jeans and a plain white t-shirt, but his badge and pistol were clearly visible on his hip. As he passed by the athletic store, his gaze landed on Sarah. Something about her, the upright posture, the way she carried herself, set off alarms in his head. To him, she didn't fit the profile of a typical shopper in a place like this. He lingered near the entrance, pretending to check his phone while, in reality, he was keeping Sarah in his sights, his mind racing with assumptions. Inside, Sarah finally found a pair of shoes that met her standards. She approached the register, handing her card to the young cashier, who offered a nervous smile. As she waited for the transaction to process, she caught sight of Beckett outside. His eyes were locked onto her, unwavering. A feeling of unease settled in her stomach, but she forced it down. The moment she stepped out of the store, purchase in hand, Beckett moved in, blocking her path. "Excuse me, ma'am," he said, his voice rough and authoritative. "I need to ask you a few questions." Sarah arched an eyebrow. "Is there a problem, officer?" Beckett's hand casually rested on his holster. "You were acting kind of suspicious in there. Mind telling me what you were up to?" Sarah, whose patience had been honed by years of high-pressure situations, felt irritation rising. "I was shopping," she responded, lifting the bag for emphasis. "Is that a crime now?" Beckett's eyes narrowed. "Let me see some ID." A beat passed. Sarah's jaw tightened. "Why?" she asked, her voice steady but firm. "Have I done something wrong?" Beckett's fingers twitched over his gun. "Don't make this harder than it needs to be." And then, in a chilling moment of clarity, it hit her. This had nothing to do with her actions. Nothing to do with any actual wrongdoing. This was about one thing: her skin color. Her heart sank, but she wasn't about to be intimidated. Taking a breath, she spoke, her voice calm yet commanding. "Officer, I'm going to ask you to step back. I have done nothing wrong, and I refuse to be treated like a criminal for simply shopping." But Beckett wasn't listening. His mind was already made up. Then, before she could react, he reached for his weapon. In an instant, his gun was drawn, aimed directly at her. The mall seemed to freeze. Shoppers gasped. Mothers instinctively pulled their children close. Store clerks peeked nervously from behind counters. The air was thick with tension, fear crackling in the atmosphere. Sarah's pulse pounded, but she refused to show panic. Years of military training took over. Slowly, deliberately, she raised her hands, her gaze locked onto Beckett's. "Drop the bag," he barked. Sarah let the shopping bag slip from her fingers, her voice steady despite the situation. "Officer, you're making a mistake." Beckett's face twisted in frustration. "Don't tell me what I'm doing. Get on the ground." She hesitated. Kneeling meant complete submission, and she wasn't about to give this man the satisfaction. Her voice, unwavering, cut through the tension. "Officer," she said, her eyes locked onto his. "I am Major General Sarah Miller, United States Army." And in that single moment, the entire dynamic shifted. Racist cop pulls gun on Black Army general, instantly regrets it. "Sarah Miller, United States Army. I suggest you lower your weapon." Her voice was steady, unshaken, carrying the weight of authority that only years of military service could provide. For a brief second, Officer Beckett hesitated. Something about the way she said it, the sheer confidence, sent a jolt of doubt through him. But then, just as quickly, his prejudice took over, clouding his judgment. "Yeah, right," he scoffed, shaking off his momentary hesitation. "Get on the ground.
Now."
Or else. Or else what? The voice didn't belong to Sarah. It came from the crowd, a young man stepping forward, phone in hand, its camera lens pointed straight at Beckett. "I got everything on video," he said, his voice firm. "She just told you she's a general, dude. You're pointing a gun at a hero." Beckett's face flushed red, rage and panic flashing across his features. "Put that phone away and get out of here," he barked. But it was too late. The damage was done. The murmurs in the crowd turned into full-blown outrage. More phones were raised, recording every second of the tense standoff. Eyes widened in disbelief as whispers spread like wildfire. Did he just pull a gun on a U.S. general? Sarah saw her opportunity. "Officer Beckett," she said, reading his name from his badge, her voice clear and authoritative. "You're about to make the biggest mistake of your career.
Stand down."
For the first time, real hesitation flickered in Beckett's eyes. His hand trembled slightly on the grip of his gun. The crowd's murmurs grew louder, pressure mounting with every passing second. "Do you even know who you're pointing that gun at?" someone shouted. And then, just in time, mall security arrived. 2 guards rushed over, their faces pale as they took in the scene. "What's going on here?" one of them demanded. Beckett didn't answer, but Sarah did. "This officer pulled a weapon on me without cause," she stated, voice unwavering. "I want to speak to a supervisor." Immediately, the tension was suffocating. Then, in a stroke of fate, the mall manager arrived, followed closely by a police captain who had happened to be shopping nearby. The captain, a middle-aged Black woman with sharp, perceptive eyes, took one look at Sarah and froze. Then her jaw dropped. "General Miller?" she gasped, rushing forward. "What in the world is going on here?" Sarah didn't waste words. She explained the situation in a few concise sentences, her tone professional yet firm. The moment Captain Denise Harper turned to Beckett, her face hardened into a mask of controlled fury. "Holster your weapon, Officer Beckett." Beckett's throat bobbed. His fingers twitched, still gripping the gun, but Harper's voice boomed with unmistakable authority.
"Now."
Reluctantly, Beckett obeyed, slipping the gun back into his holster. Captain Harper turned back to Sarah, her expression deeply apologetic. "General, I am so sorry. This is completely unacceptable." Sarah nodded, her eyes sharp. "It is. And I expect it to be dealt with." The fallout was swift. Within hours, the video of the incident was everywhere. Social media exploded. The footage, capturing every second of Beckett's aggression and Sarah's calm defiance, went viral, racking up millions of views overnight. The outrage was immediate, undeniable. News outlets picked up the story. Beckett's history of racial profiling, a history that had been conveniently buried time and time again, was suddenly thrust into the national spotlight. Every complaint that had been swept under the rug, now it was front-page news. Within a week, Officer Beckett was suspended without pay, pending an internal investigation. The department, now under intense scrutiny, had no choice but to take action. Meanwhile, Sarah received an overwhelming wave of support. Messages poured in from fellow service members, veterans, and civilians alike, people who were horrified but not surprised by what had happened. In an interview, Sarah made one thing clear. "This isn't just about me. It's about the countless others who don't have the rank, the title, or the platform to defend themselves. This has to stop." Her words became a rallying cry. The incident was no longer just about one moment of discrimination. It became a symbol of the broader fight for justice. A powerful message. Major General Sarah Miller's story is a chilling indictment of racial profiling and the abuse of power within law enforcement. It proves a harsh truth. No matter your rank, your status, or your achievements, discrimination can still find you. But her story is also one of courage. Her refusal to back down, her demand for accountability, has inspired thousands. This moment also highlights something even more critical: the power of community. It was the bystanders, the people who spoke up, who pulled out their phones, who demanded justice, that helped change the course of events. Without them, who knows what might have happened? And that is the lesson we must all take away. The fight against racism isn't over. But if we stand together, if we refuse to stay silent, then change is possible. Sarah Miller stood up.
Now, will we?